Do it at the end.
Hello and welcome to this special author interview for FanFiAddict. I'm Frasier Armitage, part-time robot, full-time nerd, author of New Yesterday and Times Ellipse. And joining me today is an absolute genius writer who is amazing. Her books are just like, I absolutely love them. She is the queen of the Weird West. It is Stark Holborn. Stark, hi, how's it going?
Oh, yeah, really good. I was going to ask, what is part-time robot? Why?
Oh.
I mean,
It's for me it means many different things, but we can talk about that. I'm sure that's why everyone's tuned in. Everyone has come to watch the video to hear us talk about that. Yeah,
looked at the
totally.
bio in this one.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's so great to see you, Stark. I know that we've met before at Chimera last year, and it was such a pleasure to get to see you again. So, and big things have happened since Chimera, right? You've got a new book out coming out this month, Ninth Life, which is part of the Factus Sequence, which is super exciting. How are you feeling about it?
There
it is.
Feeling good. It's always a strange thing when it's the third in not a series, it's a sequence, because they're sort of technically they're standalone follow-ups. They don't quite follow on, and this one is actually a very different book from the previous two. I think a lot of people expected it would just pick up where the previous one left off, and it definitely doesn't do that. Right from the beginning, when I started writing Tenlo, I mean, Tenlo was just a standalone. I never intended it to be a series or a sequence, whatever. But as soon as I finished it, I had the idea for this, which is any readers who've read Tenlo will know Gabby, aka the General, and this is her story. And I actually started. There's this thing, everyone's like, oh, Tenlo, Hell's 8, Ninth Life, they're all out of order. And I could pretend there's some really fancy reason behind it. But the reason is I tried to write this 2 years ago and just failed. I just couldn't do it. Didn't work for some reason, so I wrote Hell's 8 instead. Went back to this one, got it right the second time, which is a long-winded way of saying I'm really excited to get it out there finally.
I am so excited that it's out there. It is so good, and I'm so glad you took your time to get it right, because this story is super special. We've got some guys who are checking in and saying hi. So Dynamic Rome, hi, good to see you. And Sarah, really nice to see you. Hello. If anybody that's joining us live, feel free to just type things in the comments, ask questions. We'll try and get to as many of them as we can, and hopefully everybody's got their picklebacks, so we'll have a good time. Yeah. So you tried to oh, hey, it's Jordan. Dynamic Chrome is Jordan.
Hi,
hey,
Jordan.
So yeah, you tried to write this a couple of years ago, failed, succeeded now. Do you feel like there were things that you learned from writing Hell's 8 that you were able to bring across into Ninth Life? Do you think that like helped you out in a way?
I think so. I mean, in a like a narrative, practical way, and then in a kind of more emotional way as well. Yeah. So in a practical way, Tenlo is a very straightforward narrative. It's like, it's propulsive. It's one POV, first person present. It starts and it goes, it gets to the end. And then with Hell's 8, I had the two perspectives. One's first person present, one's first person past, kind of playing off against each other. And I thought that added something to the narrative to bring in the history of Factus and the history of another character. And so we then come to Ninth Life, which is, and we were talking about this earlier, it's first person past some of the time. Sometimes it's second person. Sometimes it's first person present. Sometimes it's all of them. Sometimes it's a military dossier. Sometimes it's an interview. Sometimes, this was the really audacious one, and I thought, oh fuck, my editor's going to take this out. It's a bit of unproduced screenplay from like drama someone's written in this world that I'm just like, there's no way this gets through, and it has. So I obviously made it work, but I think that switching of perspectives was a really good lesson in how changes in tense and POV can really help kind of pull narrative threads together, especially if you're a bit stuck sometimes. That really helped me out. But then emotionally, as a lesson, I think it taught me to not worry about what people are expecting, what my publisher's expecting, what readers are expecting. Because when I was doing that, I was stuck, and I couldn't get past what I thought the book should be until I just relaxed into it. And I was like, well, what did I love about writing the first one? And then I went back to that, and as soon as I got into that mindset, and I could do it. And so with Ninth Life, I just thought my one rule was that I have to enjoy this process. I have to love writing it. And if that means doing some weird stuff, then I'm going to have to do the weird stuff.
Yeah, and I think that the weird stuff works.
Oh, Thomas in the chat.
Brilliant. Hi, Thomas. There we go. And yeah, I think you speak for all of us, Thomas. Anybody who's read Stark's books, everybody who I know absolutely loves them. They're absolutely great. But yeah, more of the weirdness, Stark. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. I think like with the style that you've written it in, it adds so much like poetry to the book, and it's almost got this like folkloric element to it, but at the same time it's almost like a bit of a puzzle. But I just love how you were able to combine all of these different things to give it so many different flavors. When you were writing it, like, did you set out with the intention that you were going to combine all of these different things and all these different layers, or was that just like a really happy accident as you were writing it?
Oh no, I definitely wanted to combine all of the different styles and different layers. And I think as I went through, part of the fun was to be like, okay, well, how am I going to tell this bit? You know, I've got, is it going to be a transcript? Is it going to be like a bit of unproduced film? Is it going to be from Lester Six of Us, who's my interstellar radio DJ? And that was a huge part of the fun, and just being a bit more experimental, especially with dialogue. And then one of the great things about writing an interview is that you obviously can get a lot of information across quickly, and it's as much about what you don't put into it as what you do. And so you can have these really tricky characters who kind of don't want to reveal information but are revealing it in little bits. So yeah, you're right in terms of making it like a puzzle, not revealing too much about the characters at that stage in the narrative, because you know you're going to go back and pull some of those threads out later. It was just a lot of fun to do. And a big influence on this book is a book called Radiance by Kat Valent. It's really good. That's set in like an alternate 1920s when movie production, instead of going to Hollywood, has gone to the moon. And that book is very sort of intertextual and was a big influence on this one.
Oh, that's awesome. I was going to ask about your influences and stuff later on, but you already hit it. It's amazing. What you should do is you should take a shot of pickleback for every time that you precede a question that I've got lined up. So that's the yes.
No, I actually really love pickles. So everyone's like, "Oh, that's disgusting." I'm like, "It's just delicious. It's delicious liquor."
It's like the Alien 3 of drinks, isn't it? It's like things that most people like would say is like gross, and you're like, "I love it. Give me more."
Yeah, no, I love it. Yes, I'll take these things.
With this being like the third book of the sequence, and I know that you have a love for Alien 3, and obviously there are other things that come in threes, like, you know, the spaghetti western influence. The Dollars trilogy comes in threes, and The Good, the Bad, the Ugly being the one that's most revered out of all of those. Did you feel like a pressure to get like the third book particularly right?
Well, at the beginning, I didn't know there was going to be a third book. So someone saying all the Alien movies are great. We'll have this debate later. But I think, yeah, I think there was part of the drive towards making this feel cohesive and conclusive as a trio of books. Not saying I won't ever go back Factus or that particular world, but this very much felt like it was, I wanted to bring Ten and Gabby's story to some kind of close, because it's really, although the books have Tenlo as a protagonist in the first two, is really both of their stories start when they literally crash into each other. So I kind of wanted to bring them together and bring it to some sort of conclusion.
And it's
I
know, yeah, I was gonna say don't say anymore, but I loved the way you wrapped it up. I thought the way you wrapped it up was awesome and just perfect. But everything about this book is perfect. Thomas wants to know if pickle juice is the best and worst beverage for creative writing.
Pickle juice is pretty great, just because I love a pickle. Worst for me, this is so weird, but Earl Grey. Like honestly, I'll drink it and I'll fall asleep. Like other tea fine, but for some reason Earl Grey, if I have it, afternoons are bad for me anyway. I'm just so sleepy. But yeah, no, if I have Earl Grey, nothing doing. Coffee is best.
See, I was thinking about this yesterday, that I usually fall asleep when I'm reading, but I've never fallen asleep while I've been writing. And I think it's because while I'm reading, I'm drinking like very soothing, relaxing tea. And when I'm writing, I'm just so stuck in it that like I could just go for hours and then be like, have I drunk anything in the last like 3 days? So I think tea is like the potential downfall for writers, you know, which is quite controversial because so many books have been written powered by tea. So yeah.
Not mine.
Sarah wants to know, this is like a yes or no question, Stark. Sorry, will there be more Factus?
I don't know. There will definitely be another short story, because I'm working on one at the moment for an anthology, which is a bit like Yojimbo but with a space nun. So there's in Ninth Life, there's a report from a character who's she's kind of like an inspector, but she's also a nun of this sect called the Munificents, who are all about spreading like kindness, but in like a quite forceful way. And so I think she's going to be in the lead in this story I'm writing. I didn't think there was going to be any more imminently, but literally just before we started this, Frasier gave me an idea. So, like, who knows? Maybe I have no plans at the moment, but like, you know, never say never.
Yeah, exactly. And it's dangerous talking to writers because they'll always give you good ideas, right? And then you'll be like, ooh, maybe that would be fun to do. So, but yeah, if you do write more, Stark, then just for everybody who's listening, you're welcome. It's good. So, but you know how I feel about Factus, Stark. I think it's absolutely like amazing. I really want you to get down to like 0. I want like the 11 book sort of thing. I think that would be really, really cool. Let's talk about the history of the Factus Sequence, because there might be some people who have joined here because they know you as like a game writer, or they know you in other spheres. They might not have actually read the Factus Sequence or any of those books. So take us back to Tenlo and take us back to like the initial spark of what actually sort of kicked this whole universe off.
Okay, I have it here. Tenlo. So this is number 1 in the Factus Sequence. Tenlo, I got the idea when I was on my way back from Dublin Worldcon. I was in my sister's car, I'd fallen asleep in the back, and I was just thinking, because I loved my debut novel was called Nunslinger. It's sort of it's a revisionist Western. It's not fantastical, it's not science fiction, it's a Western. And I was trying to think what I really loved about writing that. And one of the things I liked most about it was these 2 characters who are from opposing viewpoints thrown together, having to find their way through this dire situation. And so then, as I was sort of thinking, well, how else could I explore that? I then came up with the idea, the characters of Ten and Gabby they just arrived. And from then on, I had that idea and it sort of developed, and then I had the idea for the ifs, which is some people call them the aliens, some people call them the supernatural force, which are in the book. Some people say they're beings that feed on chance and doubt. Every time you make a decision, multiple worlds branch, and so the ifs try to cause chaos so that they can feed on all of these possibilities, and they'll follow certain people who are more likely to make decisions go bad, or make big world changing decisions. And so 10 as a character in this, she's an ex-medic, she's an ex-convict from the losing side of a war, and she is haunted by the ifs. And then one day she crosses paths with Gabriella Ortiz, who looks like a normal 13-year-old girl, but is in fact a genetically enhanced child soldier who is basically a kind of propaganda tool, which has been used by the winning side to partly to win their war. So she's a fully fledged military general, and totally believes she's right. She thinks Ten's a traitor. She hates her guts. And then throwing these two together, and then throwing them onto a desert moon full of bandits and snake farms and cults and criminals and bike gangs, and basically just chaos ensues.
Yes, it's like such a great blend of like Mad Max meets spaghetti western meets all of these different. It's like an action adventure, but it's pulpy, but it's also like poignant, and it's got so much speculation. So it's like deep, but also very cool.
Thank
and
you.
What I think is amazing is that throughout the whole of the sequence, through Ten Low, through Hell's 8, through Ninth Life, you've sustained all of those different ingredients. Like, you've been able to keep it cool and deep and rich and layered and textured, but also just really, really like, whoa. Do you find that like your love of those kinds of things helps with the writing? Like when you're writing from something that you're really passionate about, or a genre you love, does that help you as a storyteller? You know, do you bring that into the stories that you tell, and does that benefit them, do you think?
I think so. I mean, I really wanted these books to have like the tone of a Mad Max movie, or of a John Carpenter movie, or of something, or like the Alien film, something like that, which is pulpy in its way and is definitely genre, but also has amazing characters, has like memorable settings and locations, and it just pulls you in when you're watching. You're in that world, and I'm a big fan of pulp. I think pulp can be used to say some really pressing and important things, and just because it's in a pulp format doesn't mean it's can deal with less weighty topics. I mean, Philip K. Dick is one of my favorite writers, and like I think Ursula Le Guin said, you know, he is dealt with, I can't remember the exact quote, but some pretty heavy topics, but in a like popular entertainment format, and that's like, it's such a talent to be able to do it. So it's definitely something I was aiming for with these books. And then so I wanted to capture that feeling, but with really good female leads and diverse casts, which is what a lot of the films that I love, kind of especially the 80s kind of films, you know, the John Carpenter, especially, like, it's what they're lacking. So so the world of Ten Low and Factus is a queer norm world. It just is, like, I mean, why not? I didn't see any reason not to make it that way. And then hopefully the protagonists as well are all kind of quite rounded, interesting people in their own right. So again, that's super important.
Yeah, totally. And I think that you absolutely. If Philip K. Dick could read these books, I would love to hear his take on it. That would be amazing.
Deal with that.
Oh, it would be yeah. Because I'm the same. I love Philip K. Dick, but I love these. These are, I think, these like on the shelf next to his. Like that's actually where I had them for a very, very, very long time. And then recently, like, moved them into a more exclusive shelf. But but yeah, I can totally see the pulpiness of them, and it just works so nice and refreshing to read. you talked about the ifs earlier, having like different, every time a decision's made, all of these different consequences forming like these different realities. If you could go back and write 10 Low again, what would you do differently, and what kind of chaos do you think that the ifs could create from it?
Oh man, I don't think I could write it again, and I don't think I would redo it now. I mean, the first half of it I wrote during NaNoWriMo. Like, the first 50,000 words was just a sprint, and I think it's one of the reasons it's so fast paced. So maybe I would go back and slow it down a little bit in places, but I think it was of its. I mean, I think all books are of the moment when they're written. But speaking of the ifs, I did get very, very stuck on the last third. Didn't know what to do. I was like wallowing on the floor, face down. I can't finish the book. And I was like that for about 3 weeks. It was awful. And in the end, I literally resorted to augury. I got a dictionary and was flipping through it, like stabbing at random words, try and like, let fate get me out of my bind. And I jabbed on the word buzzard. And I went, that sounds like a vehicle, like an air vehicle. Who would use one? I was like, probably a sheriff. And then as soon as I got that unlocked like part of the conflict of the next scene, which then unlocked like the whole drive towards the conclusion. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe they did, maybe they helped out.
That would be amazing. How meta is that? Yeah. Sarah likes that as well. Augury by dictionary. That is a great writing method.
I know, it's one of those things I don't want to tell anyone to do, because like that sounds mental, but like it worked for me. I think it really was about like just letting your mind relax into that creative space again, without any of the like preconceived, you should be doing this, you should do this, and then just being like getting idea generation.
Yeah. So are you a pantser when you're writing, Stark? You don't have like the end in mind?
I usually know vaguely where I'm going. It's that whole road trip in the dark type thing. And I always say that I am a complete pantser, but it is a lie. I do a little bit of planning, and I have a star system with which I just came up with when I was writing Nunslinger, actually, because the chapters are so short. I needed to keep the dynamic range, so I'll write like a line or two about what the chapter is going to be, what the scene is, and then I have the system is red for action, yellow for character, green for description, and I'll give it a star rating depending on what's in that chapter. And then it means when I look at the page, I can quickly sort of go, okay, I've got too much red here, not enough red there, too much green, and I can get like a very quick overview of the shape of the book.
That's really cool. So if it helps for pacing, to make sure there's no lulls. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. When you started out and you started sort of writing 10 Low, I know you said that you didn't know there was going to be a third book, but did you know about all of the wider space beyond Factus? I mean, how big was the world in your imagination when you started out?
It's pretty big, and I mean, some of them in Ninth Life, especially, stuff gets referenced. The home planets. There was always Crossbow was always there. Jericho was always there. The congregations. So it's always mostly been there. A few things get sort of expanded upon. And in Ninth Life, there's one. I think in Hell's 8 they go to Delos, which is like one of the nearest moons, which is kind of very industrial, and like there's a junk district and everything like that. In Ninth Life they go to Prodor, which is a very swampy moon, and that was one of the most fun things to write, just somewhere that's complete opposite of Factus. So yeah, a lot of it was there from the beginning. I've just expanded on it.
Oh, that's so cool, because that was one of the things that I loved about Ninth Life, is how it kind of like expands, but it all still feels like the same type of. So with Hell's 8, when you go and you take on Zune, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but when you take on Zune, and you go to Delos, it's so cool. But then with Ninth Life, you kind of take that and you run with it so far. That I was loving it. It never feels like it's not a Factus book. And I was like, how did you pull that off? How did you write this, like the opposite world of Factus, but make it still feel like the characters were still, it was still a Factus story? I thought it was genius.
I was a bit worried about that because I was like, is it Factus if it's not like deserty? But then I thought one of the things about Factus is that people are just quite weird and it's quite lawless. So I just sort of went with that vibe.
That's cool. That's really cool. I love that you had so much fun writing it as well. And that, exploring different things. Raf, hey Raf, he asks, what westerns influenced you the most for this series?
Ooh, good question. For this one, so I'm a big fan of like revisionist westerns. Like I'm not particularly interested in traditional ones. And I especially like ones that are pretty heavily revisionist in their approach. One western that really influenced Hell's 8 actually is a Brazilian western called Bacurau. It's from 2019, I think, and it's a fantastic film. It's got like shades of John Carpenter in it, and like I think the school, if you look closely in it, there's a school in one of the towns, and it's named after John Carpenter. The soundtrack's quite Carpenter-esque, but it's basically like the Magnificent Seven, but it's from the perspective of the people in the town. They're not waiting for the saviors to come in, like they're their own saviors. And it's a super diverse community and explores like themes of empire and colonialization. And it's just a fantastic film. There's a character in it called Lunga, who's a big influence on Ruth, who's one of the characters in Hell's 8. And that's one I would highly recommend everyone to watch. It's quite violent, but it's quite pulpy as well, and brilliant western. And then apart from that, I mean, one of my favorite ever western books is The Sisters Brothers by Patrick DeWitt, which is just a brilliant book. It's funny, it's poignant, it's brutal, it's just incredibly written. So I think those are two that are up there.
You mentioned some characters, so you mentioned Ruth. There are characters that move across these stories and move across these books. What was it like bringing them into Ninth Life? Was it, because Ninth Life is kind of like, it's Gabby recounting like her history. So she encounters obviously characters that we're very familiar with as part of these stories she's telling. So was it fun sort of deciding who came back and where?
Yeah, and I did want to bring some familiar characters back. The difficulty is we're sort of seeing them from Gabby's perspective this time, not Ten's, and Ten has quite a different relationship with some of them. So Ruth as a character was really fun to bring back because they are super in love with Gabby, and just have been from the beginning. So that was really fun to sort of explore some of that angle. And then with Luther Zune as well, who's just like, when I was writing him, I was like, this is too much of a villain, like it's too big. And then I would go and read some of the stuff that Elon Musk does, and I'm like, oh, I've got nothing. Zune looks tame in comparison. So yeah, I think those were the fun ones. But yeah, presenting them from a different perspective was really fun as well.
Would you take Zune over Musk, do you think?
Oh God. I don't know. Imagine them in the same room.
It's a good job that one of them is fiction and that we never actually have to see that happen. That'd be mental. You also have a character that is in all of the books, which is Lester Six of Us, which you alluded to earlier. He's a DJ. Have you ever fancied spinning the decks yourself, Stark?
Oh, I mean, it's one of those fancies when, like, in The Fog, she's got her amazing radio show out in the lighthouse. I'm like, oh, that would be so cool. but I don't know how good I would be at it. I don't know. I have a big admiration for people who can do it well. I was listening to Kip Casper the other day on Six Live, just amazing stories and amazing radio DJ. I did put together a playlist for which is inspired, sort of songs inspired by Ninth Life, or like that I've taken inspiration from. imagining the type of things that Lester might play. So you can find that. It's out there. I might post it.
Yeah,
But
that's part of the Factus repository, right?
it is, yeah, which is like a kind of interactive wiki that I've made all about Factus, and it was just super fun to make. And there's yeah, you can listen to Perpetual Notions playlist, which is Lester Sixfer.
Yeah, it's a good job that you took a sip then, because that was you coming up with like perfect segue into what I was going to ask you about with creating this like database, because the database is actually like, you write about it in Ninth Life, the database is a part of the story, and then you've put together like a database, and it was just so cool, like looking through and reviewing it all and everything. How long did it take you to put together?
Not that long. So it's built in a thing called Decker, which I don't know if anyone knows the old like HyperCard system. It's kind of based on HyperCards. You can link cards together, a bit like Pages. A lot of the information I already had written out as a world Bible, because I wrote one when we sold the film rights to Tenlo a few years ago. They wanted a world Bible, and so I wrote one for that. So I had quite a lot of the stuff, and then obviously I had to update it with a bunch of others. I mean, maybe like 2 days, when I should have probably been doing a lot of other stuff, but it was really fun. So once I started, I got really obsessed and couldn't stop until I'd done it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then, so if you have read Hell's 8 or Tenlo and want a refresher on some of it, it's not too spoilery. You can go there and check it out.
My favorite part of it was when I clicked into a character and it just said that the everything had been deleted, and I was just like, oh, that's so good. That's like yeah, I loved exploring that earlier, and I love the feel that you put into it. Whoever did the art for it is like really captured like the spirit of the books, because it's just so cool, like all of the pixels and the like almost like the shadiness of the characters. It's just perfect. I just loved it. Was that all sort of from notes that you gave them, or were they fans of the book when you were working with them? Or
this is the amazing thing about Decker, like you just drop pictures into it, and it has amazing dithering effects, and so it just makes anything look cool. So I mean, I didn't actually get art. One piece of art I made was the Perpetual Notions logo, and I just made that on a thing quickly. But then the rest of it is just Decker itself and stock images.
That's really cool.
It's really fun. Like, it's a really fun tool to experiment with.
Yeah, I'm immediately gonna go and check out Decker. Yeah, yeah. Raf is mentioning your Warriors t-shirt. Yeah,
Thank you.
You have excellent taste in t-shirts, Stark. Yeah. Raf also wants to know if we'll learn more about the ifs beyond the frontier. So these in this last book.
There is a bit more about the ifs. I mean, the ifs are pretty unknowable, really. So, I mean, Lutho Zune's probably the person who studied them most, and he's not exactly the most reliable of scientific sources. So there is a little bit more about them. They are quite mysterious, though.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that because having read Ninth Life, I think that it's got this perfect blend between giving you as much information as you need to put the pieces together without actually giving you the information that is like saying this is it, but it gives you enough to be able to then create a mythology about the ifs for yourself, which is exactly, it's just, oh, it's so good. I can't wait for people who haven't read it to just read it and then talk about it. Because the first thing I wanted to do was find someone who'd read it and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So it's, yeah, it's going to be so nice when people can do that. It's going to be great.
I'm always really interested to hear theories, because some people are like, oh, but no, they don't exist. People are just paranoid. Or like, oh, yeah, they exist in this thing and they influence this. I'm like,
I think that you're definitely gonna hear some theories, I think, by the end of Ninth Life, which is really good. When Hell's 8 came out, we did a little like written Q&A, which was great to do. It was really fun.
Yeah,
But I asked you to describe that book in 3 words, and the 3 words you picked for Hell's 8 were dust, luck, and redemption, which were just
yeah.
3 really good words. Yeah. I know it's putting you on the spot a bit, but if you could condense Ninth Life into, let's say, like a sentence or just like, you know, a handful of words, are there any that really like stand out to you? Like buzzard, for example, or do you should get a dictionary? That's what we should do.
Yeah, one over there. I think a lot of the book to me is summed up. There's a sentence right at the beginning, which was it starts with you told me you died 8 times and that this would be the last. But it's the last line of that sort of prologue, which was, but you were more than human. You were already halfway to the stars, which to me, that kind of sums up what the book is about, and the vibe of kind of the making of a legend and the making of stories and the importance of collective memory and how stories live on in a kind of cultural vernacular as well as in people's imaginations and minds. It's like someone transcending the person they were, kind of almost shedding who they had been and becoming something much bigger and much more scattered.
And I absolutely got that from the book, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you about was your take on the power of storytelling, because essentially this is what this book is. It's kind of like a love letter to storytelling in a way, because this is what Gabby's doing. She's telling her story to have, and yeah, it's. Do you think that there's like a limit to the power of storytelling?
I mean, no, in the sense that stories are incredible. I mean, we're still telling stories that were written, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago. The joy of stories is that each new generation can take them and retell them and take what they want from the original lesson and find something new in it and say it in their own voices, in their own words, and the story still lives on. I think stories are incredibly powerful, and they can do more to carry a message than all propaganda that is paid for by governments can. I mean, this book, someone the other day actually called it a war book, which was really interesting. I never thought of it in that sense, but there is a lot in there about the way information is fought over and controlled. And I think we're living in a time now when information is fought over and our attention is fought over and controlled in a way that it hasn't been previously. And so I think stories, especially stories that make you see things from someone else's perspective and kind of foster a sense of empathy, are more important now than they ever have been. I mean, always been important, but even more so.
You think those are the kind of stories that we need right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think stories that remind us of our humanity, shared humanity.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because I feel like, you know what you're saying about storytelling and about it being something that's redone, and that we tell these same stories, but we tell them in our own way. I kind of feel like there's so much fresh storytelling that's being done, and I'm reading things and seeing things that I've never read before. And like Ninth Life was one of those books. I'd never read a book like Ninth Life before. It's just absolutely, it's a masterpiece. I told you this earlier, but yeah, I genuinely one of the best books I've ever read. Do you think that like having influences that you know, like the Strugatsky brothers, which I know you love their books, and with your work as a judge on the Arthur C. Clarke Awards and getting to read so many brilliantly diverse, unique stories as part of that, does that help you when it comes to finding that style and that voice, which makes something feel fresh and feel new, even if you are drawing from things that are familiar to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's people attempting to do new things, but sort of telling their stories fearlessly as well, and kind of fearlessly taking on these genres, and not being afraid to use them to say what they want to say, which is, I think, super influential to me. I mean, there's a a series that came out, a Western series that came out a couple of years ago or last year called The English, which is with Emily Blunt and Chaska Spencer. And it's a properly revisionist Western. It is interrogating deeply everything about the genre of the West, like the Western genre, every preconception. And it's making sure that the stories are told from the perspectives that are usually ignored. It deals with like the Native American experience, with genocide, with cultural appropriation, with position of women in the West. And it's that's the type of thing I want to see when it comes to genres and reinventing and retelling these stories. There's so much out there that can be, and like I kind of want people to pull them apart and then show us what they are or what they could be. And then with the Clarke Award, it's just it's such a privilege to be able to read all of these books. And this year in particular was just such a strong year for submissions. We could have had a shortlist that was 30 books long easily, and it was really hard getting it down to a shortlist of 6.
Oh, I can imagine. I think that's the thing. There are some years where there's such strength in storytelling, and I feel like we're in that phase right now where speculative fiction is having its moment, and it is very much the best storytellers are gravitating towards the speculation and speculative elements of it. And do you feel like that's something that you'll continue to write, even if it's not in Factus? Do you think that you'll still write spec fic as in the future?
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think I'm getting away from it anytime soon. My next couple of projects might be historical, so I might be sort of going back over there for a bit. But I do have a new universe I'd quite like to explore, a new world, which is kind of call it, what am I calling it? Space gothic. So it's like it's kind of like Dune meets Gormenghast meets Gideon the Ninth with some kind of androids thrown in.
I love it already. That's awesome.
Some Raising the Dead and stuff going on.
Is that why you wanted to know how I was a part-time robot? Because it was research for your next book? That's it.
Maybe. I just want to know anyway, but.
Talking of storytelling and in different ways, Raf has a question that kind of ties into this, which is, hang on, that was Sarah. Let's hear from Sarah first, because she said that sounds amazing. Is there any other genre you'd like to give a go at some point?
Well, I am. Well, I don't know. I mean, I cover quite a lot of genres. I've written historical fiction. I've never done like fantasy as a thing, kind of undiluted thing. But I mean, I think I'll probably always combine it with something else. Genres. I'm so jealous of singer-songwriters. I would love to be able to write good songs. Like Anais Mitchell, she's one of my favorite songwriters, and I'm just envious and in awe of her ability to condense something so powerful into one line. So I'd love to be a songwriter, but that obviously takes practice.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah, the Stark Holborn album. Oh, that would be so good. Yeah. Even if you didn't have like the music, just the lyrics of what that would be. I always wanted to write a concept album where it was a murder mystery, and you get sort of like the different tracks were like the different sort of statements of each of the sort of like people, and then you've got to try and figure out the whodunit as you're listening. I thought that would be a cool way of doing it. Yeah, anyway, that was a random diversion. Yes. Let's go back to Raf's question, because Raf was asking about your game and your work in games. He said that he's a fan of Tenlo. Cloudpunk's one of his favorite indie games. Does your experience writing novels and love for the Western genre help you writing for the heavily anticipated novelette?
So Thomas was in the chat earlier. Thomas is the writer of Cloudpunk, and it's just, I don't understand. It's such an amazing job on that, single-handedly writing this incredible setting. I'm just very lucky to be working with Thomas now, who's incredibly funny and insightful, and and just a great writer. So I think that helps a lot. But what is it? My the Western genre. Yeah, I mean, I think both help with being concise, because Westerns are usually quite sparse in terms of prose, and my prose can be a bit flowery at times, but I try to be concise and to the point with it. And in games writing, that's really important. You know, people are not going to read an entire paragraph. Like, you've really got to get your point across in like a line or two. So that's something I definitely try to bring into all my writing, but especially my games writing. And with Novalis, look, I write weird characters anyway. Like, a lot of my characters are quite strange, and oddball, and so you can definitely expect to see some of that in Novalis. I don't think I'm stepping on any toes saying that.
That's really cool. Okay, Jay wants us to engage in real talk, and he's asking, which gang in the Warriors would you both be in?
I'd be the radio announcer. No. I'd probably be what's the gang, the female roller skating gang. I'd probably be them.
Oh yeah, Jay, type it out, because it's completely, my mind's just gone blank on what it's called. If you're there, type out what that is.
Would you be the Basic Furies? There's one. What's the gang of mimes?
I could. Do you think I could pull that off? You think I could? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I kind of. Oh, here he goes. Yeah, we're holding on. Don't worry. I kind of feel like I would want to be in the female roller skating group as well. You know, I don't know why, but I just feel like that's pretty much the coolest one. It's like
a hangout in like a subway station and like jukebox and stuff, and I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah. No, I'm like, oh, roller skaters were the punks.
Oh, by getting these, am I like mixing these two things up in my head? I just decided that's the same thing.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lesson now. Yeah, the high rollers. Yeah. So Stark Holborn, member of that, honorary member of the High Rollers. I think that's and then so you be High Rollers, I'll be the punks, and then we're covered on both of that, right? Is that okay, Jay? Is that been enough real talk for you? I hope so. Speaking of real talk, let's talk puns, because I know that you are a pun aficionado. And the likelihood is that you will have slipped more than one into Ninth Life and your books. Is there one that you are like especially proud of, like slipping in there?
Oh, Lester has a few really good ones. Lester is like the pun master. I think at one point he addresses the audience as sidereal snoops. Like, I was like, he's so verbose that it was just ridiculously fun to be like, okay, let's write some. I can never use one word when like he can use five. But I don't know. Are there puns apart from? The best puns are in. I'm doing a third Triggernometry novella at the moment, and that has some obscene puns, just like unrepentant punning.
Oh, you really should have said unrepentant. That would have been
yeah.
I know. See, it's even when you love puns so much, the puns that I make will make you groan. It's like 100%. It's a very specific niche talent that I've honed over many years. I think Sarah is sort of spot on with that observation. I was the same, a little bit Ruby Rod, a little bit Fifth Element-ish when it comes to the style of the DJ. But he's very flamboyant in the way that he speaks and comes across. But I can imagine him. I can imagine Chris Tucker doing a pretty good job of Lester Six of Us.
Yeah, very much so. It was the radio announcer from the Warriors and I think at one point Lester even addresses people as boppers, which was just my like unashamed nod. And then Ruby Rod definitely influenced. But then there's a film, I think it's called Vanishing Point, which is like a kind of big road chase film. And there's a character in that called Super Soul, that's it, who's again another like running this sort of radio station from a shack out in the waste somewhere. So that's another influence. But yeah.
That's cool. Sarah wants to know if you have like an ideal cast, actors past or present for your characters.
Everyone asks me this, and this is so hard. Like I don't know. I'm very open to ideas on what people think characters should look like. Actually, today was super fun. I just got sent through the voice samples for the audiobooks for Hell's 8 and Ninth Life, and that was so much fun listening to those. They'll be coming out in autumn, so you can look out for those. Yeah, casting. The only one, I mean, Silas. I always thought Dev Patel. I mean, that's sort of a really obvious one. And someone the other day said Florence Pugh was 10, and I was like, could be interesting. But no, I'm very open to interpretation.
I think Florence Pugh, but in like 20 years, would be amazing 10. I think she's
grizzled.
Yeah. See, I think like Emily Blunt would be a great 10. I think.
Oh.
Shave Emily's head.
Before I'd watched the English, but now I've watched the English, and she really impressed me in that. So
I guess when it comes to adaptations, because you mentioned earlier about this world Bible that you'd made because of the movie rights being bought, is there a particular type of adaptation that you would absolutely love to see the Factus Sequence made into?
Look, I mean, I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy with that. I don't know. I do think it would lend itself to TV. Anya Taylor-Joy, again, a bit too young, I think, right now. 10, a bit too doe-eyed. 10's a bit more world weary, let's say. What was I saying? I think it would lend itself to TV because it is quite episodic. And I mean, there's some great TV shows coming out at the moment. But then, you know, a really great pulpy film, I'd be very happy with that too.
I would love to play it as a game. I think that going to Factus as a video game would be awesome. Yeah. So if there's any like game developers tuning in, or like if there's any sort of like Netflix people tuning in, just make it happen. Just that would be great for all of us. Do it for us. Do it for the fans.
Do it for my bank.
Do it for Stark's bank account. Come on, do it. You've written all of these books. Were you in the same place when you were actually writing them physically? And now you've moved to a new writing space. You're going to be writing something new in the new space. How is that going to affect your writing, do you think, being in a different location?
I don't know. We'll find out, I suppose. I mean, a lot of the time when I'm writing, I do tend to sort of enter into a bit of a fey mood, and I don't notice much around me. And for years and years, I insisted on writing on Microsoft Word 2011, like just because it was invisible to me. I used it so much I couldn't even see it, like didn't notice it at all. So I'm a bit like that. If I'm in the zone, I'm just in the zone. I think the more important thing would be there's an ambience track on YouTube called Wind Through Tree and Desert. And if Wind Through Tree and Desert ever disappears, that has power. All 3 Factus books, that has been a fact I've listened to while writing. So if that ever disappears, I'll be completely stuck.
I suppose you could always get your partner to make some more sort of soundscapes for you. I remember you were saying that you did that for when you were writing Hell's 8. You would listen to soundscapes that they'd made for you.
Yeah, and they're on YouTube. So if you ever want any ambiences that sound like Factus, go on. I'll post them up somewhere. Maybe I'll post them in the chat in a minute. But they're on YouTube if you search for Factus ambience. you can find one for, you know, what the pit sounds like and what the airline road and just out in the desert. So
like the train and like
train,
yeah.
so if anyone's like does role playing or RPG stuff, they're quite useful for that as well. If you've got any settings that would match.
Yeah, that's really cool. So in terms of Ninth Life, because obviously this is like the book that's coming out this month, and its characters are amazing. Have Mercy is amazing character. I fell in love. It was quite bold of you, sort of like starting a new book with a brand new character like front and center, but I just fell in love with Have. I think she's such a strong character. Is there anything else that you're excited for, like any new things that you've included that you can, spoiler free, tell us about Ninth Life that you are really excited for people to either find out or to discover, or just to experience?
Well, I'm looking forward to people meeting Have. Have was, again, like you say, starting off with someone new. You're never sure if people are going to take to the character or not, but I think Have carries it. And then I think Prodor. I can't wait for people to go to Prodor and the fighting pits and the snails. And that's I think I'm really looking forward to people going there. And then there's one section which I'm not going to spoil, but it's a section towards the latter half of the book, and it's something that has happened to Gabby, and she goes somewhere for a period of time, and I'm really interested to hear people's theories about that, about where she actually is.
I will totally be telling you about what, because I know exactly the section, the let's call it the sequence, and it is, oh, it's so good. If anybody who's listening to this hasn't read it, there is a review on the FanFiAddict website of Ninth Life. I know that reviews are trickling in and that they are sort of coming in now, and that you're seeing like a lot of them. Are you I know that pretty much all of them have been like 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, this book's amazing. Are you happy that already you're seeing people absolutely loving the book, and is that your kind of like your hope for when it's out, that you'll just be able to just share that feeling sort of with other people of having written such like an awesome book?
Oh yeah, I just hope people will really enjoy it, and I hope it brings people to the series as a whole as well. You know, people who might have had it on their TBR piles or just haven't got around to it, and also people who maybe haven't ever read science fiction or don't think they like science fiction, or haven't read westerns and think they don't like them. And so if I can bring people into the genre as well, that would be great. But yeah, I just hope people love the journey of the book too.
Yeah, I absolutely did. And I think, anybody who just loves stories is going to love this book. And anybody who loves, anybody who loves something that is just a little bit on, like, not too far outside the box that it's not accessible, but outside the box enough that it is totally new and totally fresh in places you've never been. I think that's like the really sweet spot for stories, and this is just exactly dead center of that zone. It's like, it's outside of the box in the most accessible way possible, and I really hope people discover it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, for anybody who does want to find out more about it, or anybody who wants to sort of connect with you about the book and let you know like their theories, where can they find you and how can they reach you?
I am on most of the social media places, and I'm Stark Holborn in all of them, basically. I'm still on Twitter. I probably won't be for forever, but for the moment I am. I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Instagram, probably most on Instagram these days, I guess. I have a newsletter which you can sign up to and get a free short story. And I also have a Patreon where I post sort of behind the scenes stuff, and then content. And then we did a really fun thing with this last book where I hid patrons' names in the book. So they're basically starring characters in the books at various points. So we do fun things like that over there. And there's just a really nice bunch of people, and I talk about films and games a bit more over there as well. So they're my main places. But yeah, anywhere, come say hi.
Were there any of your Patreons that you got to kill off?
No, but I did kill off my colleagues who are working on novellas. My colleagues, some of my writer colleagues in Novalis appear cameo as dead bounty hunters. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
I did ask permission, so
I'm sure they will be thrilled with that. It would be absolute, amazing. Like, you're in the book and you're dead. That's like the best.
Yeah, that was fun.
So for anybody who's listening, for anybody who's watching, Ninth Life, must read. You must read it. It's amazing. And thank you, Stark, for chatting about the book and talking to me about this world that you've created and your inspirations, and for explaining why everyone needs to drink picklebacks when they write. And it's been so educational and helpful in so many ways. So thank you so much for being here. Raf wants to know if you can get Novalis out for PS4 or PS5.
I'm a lonely writer, Raf. No one pays attention to what I say.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining in the chat as well. It's been so nice to see your questions and to see your love for Stark as well, because it's like so well deserved. And it's so thank you, Stark, for joining. Thank you everybody for joining. Stark, all the best with what's coming next. And yeah, absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, this was great fun, and hopefully see you all sometime at something soon. Anyway, cheers, Frasier, as well.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.